Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? I hope you're doing well today. Just testing out the broadcast. Before we get started, I want to say good day to everybody. And I'm still getting a little set up here, so please forgive me. I'm trying to get situated, checking the microphones, making sure all is well. I'm gonna hit the record button. How's everyone doing today? Good day, good day. I hope you are well in the YouTube universe, and for those of you who join the playback, welcome. If you have not hit the subscribe button, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and go ahead and like this video because it helps to get the word out in the YouTube universe as to what we're talking about today. If this is your first time listening, I'm Jess, the founder of Black Travelers Network, and I hope you are doing well because today I'd like to have a very interesting discussion. So before we get into the discussion today, I want to make sure that we make it very clear that we are, in fact and indeed, a travel community, travel platform. And so I want to make sure that you know the trips that we have coming up. And I don't want to date the broadcast, so I will just let you take a closer look at it, at the list. If any of these destinations interest you, I would like for you to make it a point to email us at blacktravelersnetwork@gmail.com. This is the best way to let us know the trip that you are most interested in attending. And right now, we're just gathering our groups for these various trips. So nothing has happened at this particular moment in time. So don't feel like if you've emailed us that you have missed out on anything because we will start meeting fairly soon. Right now, the biggest thing we've been focused on is our travel group that's traveling to Rio de Janeiro for the carnival season. This group will be leaving in a few weeks, and so we will then begin to discuss our next set of trips, which is, of course, if you look on the screen, is Spain, South Africa, Kenya, and Vietnam. But even before we get to that part of the discussion, you can let us know which destination interests you the most. And so if you have never traveled with us to Brazil, our group to Brazil, again, they will be leaving probably within the next few weeks. And if you would like to be a part of the 2025 trip to Brazil, we always encourage early registration. In this case, it's a must. So definitely email us. Spacing for next year's trip will be very tight because we can only have so many people be a part of the experience as a result of a number of recent changes in the country. So next year's journey, we are planning in advance, as we always plan our journeys in advance. Plus, it makes your experience that much more affordable if you plan and you do it early. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into today's topic. And let me just say this. I wanted so badly to talk about the travel lessons that we learned from Katt Williams' interview. As all of you know, Katt Williams appeared on Club Shay Shay. I think the video right now is at around 42 million views, which is amazing and record breaking. He really did break the internet, ladies and gentlemen. And so I wanted so desperately to come on like last week, like shortly after the interview happened, to like highlight the travel lessons we can glean from the Katt Williams interview, because surprisingly he talked a lot about travel in that interview on Club Shay Shay. But I kept pushing the live back because, for me, any topic that I do, I feel like it's important to like feel strongly and passionately about the topic. But I'm not one to force a conversation that, quite frankly, to me, it doesn't get me excited. And so I kind of sat back and said, I'm going to wait till the right message comes to me. And I feel like when you partner what's happening with the message that came out of Katt Williams' interview, alongside, there's a lot going on in Hollywood right now, alongside the release of the release and the promotion of the movie The Color Purple. It's just incredible timing, that Katt Williams interview, because I feel like it really kind of speaks on so many levels to what we're seeing play out right now in Hollywood, and in particular Black Hollywood. And so I although I kept pushing it back, today I feel is an important discussion, and it is a travel discussion, believe it or not. There's a lot going on in the world of entertainment, and part of the Katt Williams interview that went viral was the part where he exposed what he calls gatekeepers. Now, he named the names we are all familiar with, like the Kevin Harts, the Steve Harveys, Cedric the Entertainer, Ricky Smiley, Kanye West. He also talked about Jonathan Majors, Diddy. I mean, the list goes on. Like, these are just the people I'm thinking of off the top of my head. But for every gatekeeper he named, I hope you caught what he implied and where he did not name the names. And I think that's a really, I'm trying to find the right word. I think that's one of the most important takeaways, because everyone kind of latched on to the fact that he talked about these big name celebrities and talked about them being gatekeepers. Although he didn't name the names of the people in power who pulled the strings, he made it abundantly clear that the gatekeepers are a part of a greater system, and that there are real power players, and most of whom we see are most of the people we see in the fronts. So, like, the Steve Harveys and the Kevin Harts, these are, according to Katt Williams, I feel like what he was trying to communicate is that these men are just pawns in a greater game that is being played. See, most people reacted to him calling out the big names that we're all familiar with. But to me, the takeaway that I got was, that's not really where your attention should be. It's fine to look at, because it's entertaining. But we're not really looking in the places where we should be looking. And that's what I want to talk about today, because that's what I took from the interview. Again, like I said, it's very entertaining, but let's look below the surface. So while Katt Williams' interview is going viral, we have this other bit of drama that is lurking in Hollywood surrounding the movie The Color Purple. Has drop the comments in below if you have seen The Color Purple, the musical, this new 2023 release. I have to be honest with you and tell you that I have not seen the film yet. Uh, I'm not really a big movie person. I hate to say that. I should. It's a little embarrassing. I don't really make time to watch movies, whether it's Netflix or anything on Hulu. It's been so long since I've been to a movie theater, and I don't have a Netflix or Hulu account, so I don't really watch movies. But I do enjoy paying attention to what's going on in Black society, in Black America, and Black Hollywood, because I feel like it's all very interesting. And this the Color Purple drama has been very, very interesting to see it play out. I mean, people are breaking down folks' body language, and there are all these gossip sites that are talking about who likes who, who's mad at who, and all of that stuff, which is whatever. But from the gate, the film had a lot of great success during its opening weekend. It moved into the number one spot over Christmas. But the momentum, honestly, for this particular film has declined. And generally speaking, there are problems with the film today that I would say were not necessarily problems with the film back in 1985 when it was first released. Like, the 1985 film, The Color Purple, in my opinion, is a classic film. It wasn't a musical necessarily, although it had amazing music bits in there, but it was just a phenomenal cast. I feel like there are a number of people today who feels like the 2023 version of The Color Purple actually is a film that promotes a lot of agendas. And, you know, even though I haven't seen it, I can tell you kind of like the reviews that I've heard. And so I'm only going off of what I have heard reported and the issues that a number of the critics in the Black community have said about the film. Is a lot of people have identified the LGBTQ agenda was present in the film, and there were a number of Black men who felt that it was an anti-Black male agenda that was presented in the film. And I'd have to see the film first to kind of judge it for myself. I'm certain it's not a huge departure from the original classic film. But, I think those are fair criticisms of it if you want to criticize the film and say it's full of agendas. But from what I gathered, that the agendas were much more pronounced in the 2023 version. And remaking a classic, to me, is a far more difficult task, because especially when we're talking about a film like The Color Purple, because you are assuming the mindset of Black society is in the same place as it was when the film was released in 1985. And that could not be further from the truth. The mindset of Black American society has advanced and has evolved in so many ways. So you no longer have Black people blindly voting for the Democratic Party without identifying specific needs, desires, and wants, and not even just wants, but an agenda for the Black community. And more people, now that we are approaching an election season, more people are prepared to hold their vote if they don't see specifics that address some of the concerns in Black America. I feel like in 1985, that was not the mindset. Although I could be wrong. So if anybody was around and have a strong memory from 1985, let me know if I'm incorrect. But you no longer have a black culture where LGBTQs issues and concerns are being kept quiet, as many people would probably say was a thing in 1985. Today, people are out, they're loud, and they're proud. And so there is a different mindset in our society, and a lower level of acceptance when it comes to agendas that are pushed in films onto our community. It's a much different time, a much different time. And there's a need, I feel, and I'd love to hear what those of you who are listening, I'd love to hear what you had to say about it. But there is a need to tell new stories that are black stories. We need to see more sci-fi films, more drama films. We need action, we need romance. I think when it comes to the black community, we have a fair amount of documentary style films. We also have a number of comedies that get released. We have biographical films that happen, like the Aretha Franklins and the Madam C.J. Walkers films, which I'm told were also poorly done. So I think it depends on who really handles the project. Again, those are films that I did not see. But there is a need to kind of like diversify the films that we are seeing in when it comes to Black America and just Black society in general. And this film, The Color Purple, I feel like I've actually heard quite a lot of buzz around the film. And Oprah Winfrey, who was one of the stars of the original classic, is definitely heavily involved in the film. But this whole experience of this Color Purple film being unveiled and rolled out, it prompts you to think, what is going on in Black Hollywood? I'm not really sure. It's so frustrating because there are several Black film production companies. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe Tyler Perry Studios is the largest film production studio in the country, and he is also the first Black man to outright own a major film production studio. And I'm talking about on a major level. And so that's really important to think about. But we also had Monique that was open and kind of started the conversation, and this Color Purple film allowed space for Taraji P. Henson to pick up where Monique left off in terms of bringing and highlighting and complaining about the money and Black actresses and pay inequities. And, those are important issues that must be highlighted. But here's the greater issue with the Color Purple film. The budget for the film was $100 million. And to date, the film has only made about $54.8 million, which means it has not even made any money as of yet. It's still falling short of that initial budget. And, to see that we have Black actresses complaining about pay inequities, not having any food on set, which is not something that's typical with a Hollywood production film. There was complaints about not having food. There were complaints about having, I guess it's the cast having to drive rental cars, and everybody wanting to blame Oprah Winfrey for there even being a problem in the first place, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. When it comes to Hollywood, I feel like we must educate ourselves, because just because a person like Oprah has a lot of money doesn't mean that every problem is her fault, and it also doesn't mean that every problem is that exists is there for her to solve. Now, to me, I look at this issue with the color purple and I blame the movie studio, which is Warner Brothers. They are to blame. This is a Warner Brothers film. And yes, Oprah is the executive producer, but the studio in this case is at the top of the food chain. It's not Oprah's responsibility to pay for everything, even though she did on the record offer to pay for the food and the rental cars. But this is a Warner Brothers film, so the studio told her no. They told her no, and they reserve the right to do that. We in Black America, I feel we need to understand the relationship when it comes to the Hollywood studios, the production companies, executive producers, directors, actors, and their management teams. I mean, the entertainment industry is very, very big for Black people in America. It's a product that we consume quite a bit of. And although we consume lots of entertainment, most of us do not know how those relationships work together. We don't understand the power. We don't understand the flow of money, nor do we oftentimes understand the chain of command and how it works, because for so long, Black people have been relegated to being the talent and never really fully being paid what we should adequately be paid. There is a lack of understanding on our part, which is why you get unnecessary criticism of major players like Oprah Winfrey. I feel like the bigger question that we must ask is, how much money did Warner Brothers slate for marketing of the Color Purple film? How much of that $100 million was set aside for that promotion and marketing of that film? That is an important understanding that we should have, but I don't know that they ever really fully release those numbers. I think the estimate has been about 50 million, but it's not a firm number, because it almost seems, I hate to say it, a bit of a setup when we hear Black actresses complaining about pay and problems on set that's related to finances. I then begin to wonder how much was spent to actually market this film, because so far, since it hasn't made any money, it becomes an easy justification on the part of Warner Brothers in terms of explaining why Black talent, especially Black female actresses, are not paid comparable to their white counterparts. And, just to highlight some quick numbers that are associated with this particular film, is this: the production cost of the film, again, $100 million. And that's assuming that $50 million was set aside for the marketing budget. It's not a firm number, but it's an assumption. Even with that, people are saying that the film must gross between $300 and $300 million at the worldwide box office in order to reach its theatrical break-even point. And it does not appear that is going to happen. And just for greater context, The Color Purple back in 1985, when it was released, was a huge success at the box office. It grossed about $98.4 million, which is why, of course, Warner Brothers would throw $100 million towards the film. Back in 1985, it brought in $98.4 million against a total budget of $15 million, which is a very small budget to make this film, but it still did really, really well. And so, where overseas are they marketing these black films? I'd love to know, like, what are the countries? This is why it's important to travel the world, because you can kind of see and get a greater understanding of how different industries play out throughout the world. There are lots of opportunities that exist here in America, but also in other countries. But there are also a great number of challenges in much of the countries that we would consider to be kind of more like black countries, like where the African diaspora is like largely concentrated. So Hollywood already has this belief that black actresses are not worth the same amount as white actresses. So anything they do is going to support that narrative. And today I kind of want to do a quick little virtual travel session around the world to the worldwide box office. And so, if you were going to see the color purple around the world, you may wonder, where would we go? I want you to take a look at your screen. I'm going to put it up. And these are just some of the destinations that you will see the color purple. And on the list, you will see that the film was obviously released here in the United States first, and of course it made its way to Canada, the UK, and all of the dates are shown next to when and where the film is actually going to be released. And this is a very, very interesting list because you can drop your comments below, like, what stands out to you about this list? What stands out? Because to me, I would not think to put the color purple in those markets. I hate to say it, but I'm sure these are markets where Warner Brothers has been a major player in for a while, and because Warner Brothers have been a player in the market for a while, I just think that it kind of is an easier thing for them to continue to go where they've gone before. So you can see Cameroon is on the list. Brazil is on the list. Our beloved Brazil. It was just released in Brazil. Of course, Denmark, Finland, Iceland. And I'm going to show you the next slide. A lot of these are the upcoming locations where the film will be released. And again, I feel like so many people do not understand what the worldwide market actually looks like. When we talk about black talent and black films and where they go overseas, it's one of those things that the studios can easily predict the success of the film. And so that's why this film is projected to not do so well, unfortunately, for the remainder of the spring. I think we'll have a real understanding of how much the film actually grossed completely on sort of like the first round by April. By the end of April, those numbers hopefully should be reported. But what countries do you see on the list? What countries are missing from the worldwide list? The vast majority of the countries where black people dominate in population are not on this list. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are there not more African countries on the list? Why is the Caribbean not on the list? You know, important questions, very important questions you should be asking. But I will say, from having spent quite a bit of time on the African continent, Africa is very tricky because film distribution is a challenge on the continent of Africa. There are not very many movie theaters on the continent. Surprisingly, a lot of people don't know that. Surprisingly, there are not very many film theaters for people to go watch movies. And also, when we look Nollywood, Nollywood, the Nigerian film industry, I just generally say the African film industry because, Nigeria attracts talent from all over the continent. But Nollywood is the number two movie industry in the world behind India's Bollywood when it comes to the annual number of films that are being produced. The big problem that you're going to run into on the African continent is distribution. You get lots of film bootlegging on the continent of Africa because there's not a structured system where people can go consume movies. Now, are there movie theaters? Yes, there are, but it's not nearly enough to really actually accommodate the large demand and the large production that exists when it comes to the film industry. So it becomes challenging to even count ticket sales on the continent because of a lack of structure and systems in the various African nations. And so this segues us to Katt Williams and that whole conversation and why his interview went viral. Now, there are many takeaways we can learn from Katt's experience, but the most profound clips from Katt Williams during this viral interview, to me, are the clips where he talks about travel. And so I'm going to find this clip, the first clip. I only have a couple of clips I want to play for you. But this is the first clip of Katt Williams sitting down with Shannon Sharpe on Club Shay Shay. So take a quick listen.
So San Francisco, Oklahoma, Sacramento. From Florida, you moved to the West Coast. So you traveling. When did you set up shop on the West Coast? How old were you then?
So I guess I'm 18 or younger, and once I have a child, I realize that I can't. It's a lot of things that I could use to make money that now is a no-go. So anything with street aspirations that I might have thought about pursuing or being good at, I now am a single parent and I gotta redo this thing. So I need comedy to really work out for me.
Right.
And me and God go into extreme conversation where I'm explaining to him that I'm a crash out dummy if he don't send me a lifeline. Like I need something I can hold on to. Before I had left Florida, I did stand up one time because we was trying to get in the club. I didn't have ID. So I said I was a comedian. They ended up having me do 5 minutes. But I kept that in my head that I had done that. When we get to Oklahoma, they're having a competition for stand-up. And if you win, you get to go out on the road with Jeff Foxworthy and Dan Whitney, who is Larry the Cable Guy, and Richard Jenny, and these great comics. You get to open for them. And once I did that, I realized, okay, as a comedian, I'm like way behind schedule. I done started this too late. all the funny guys are already funny and known names. Like, how am I going to progress? So I realized that I do better with a white audience than I do with a black audience. And I'm not sure why that's occurring,
Okay.
but the white audience likes me more. That's interesting. So when I